Okay, guys, it's time to knock out Chapter 8, Lesson 3. And it's definitely a day for a calculator because this is another plug and chug day. And we've got some big numbers that we're going to be using. So get those handy before you take this lesson. This is 8.3. It's volume of spheres, otherwise known as a ball shape. Okay, but 4/3 pi r cubed is the formula. The main thing to really make sure you pay attention to, this is r cubed this time, not r squared. The way I'm kind of going to be doing this with you is to take 4 pi r cubed first from the 4 here in this top line, and then after we do it, we're going to divide it by 3 and get our answer. Okay, so pulling out reteach. Okay, reteach 8.3. You will find it in your Google Classroom to look at. If I look at, I'm doing number 1 and 3 on this page. Okay, so on the reteach, number 1 has a sphere where they give you the radius is 5. And that's all you need for a sphere is just the radius. Because now I have this formula, and if I do 4/3 or 4 pi r cubed over 3, then I have 4 times pi. And on your calculators, there's a button, or on some of your calculators, if you're using a phone like I did, there's an actual button for pi. If you use that button, then you'll actually be closer to the answers you'll see on the answer keys I provided you. When we use just 3.14 like we should, our answers are going to be a little bit lower than what the sheet shows you again. So just be aware of that. Okay, times 5 cubed. Okay, we're going to divide that by 3 when we do it. When we do this, it's really 4 times 3.14, and 5 cubed is 125. And we're going to divide that by 3. Okay? Then when we move on and we multiply all that out on your calculator, that top row is going to give you 1,570 approximately. And then we're going to divide that by 3. And when you divide that guy by 3, you get an approximation or an estimate of about 523. Mine was closer to 523.3. Your answer key says 523.6. Again, these are going to be a little off because I think when they did these, they put the symbol pi in on the calculator instead of 3.14. No biggie. Okay. Moving on to number 3. I'm going to change marker color here so you can see the difference. Number 3 gives us a radius of 11. Okay, radius is 11. Right away we can plug this in. 4 times pi. That's just the first part of the formula. Now I plug in my 11, but I'm going to cube it. And we're going to end up dividing this by 3. Just sticking with this top row and only doing one simple step at a time. 4 times pi would look like that, and then 11 cubed, when you figure out what 11 cubed is, it's 1,331. Remember, 11 cubed doesn't mean 11 times 3. It's 11 times 11 times 11. And we're going to divide that answer by 3 still. When you multiply all those guys out on your calculator, you'll get 16,717.36. And we're going to divide that, this is a comma, by 3. And when we do, you type that into your calculator, divide by 3, and you'll get, and maybe I should use these squiggly equal signs, especially since the answer key is sometimes different. It would be 5,572.5. Okay, stop the video if you need to. Check the formula. Check where I got those numbers. All I did was plug and chug. We plug our radius in right here or right here, whichever formula makes more sense to you, and then you're going to get to your answer just by plugging it in. Okay, take a second to check these. I'm going to erase these and I'm going to move on to the skills practice page. Skills practice is going to throw a couple problems at you, one of which I'm going to do that is only the volume of a hemisphere instead of a full sphere, and I bet you guys can figure that out without me saying too much. But I'm going to look at number 1 and number 5, one of each type of problem. Okay, number 1 gives you R equals 23. Okay, right away you have your R, right away you can do this problem, because you'll do it like 4 times 3.14 times 23 cubed. And we're going to divide that guy by 3. So that's going to continue to be 4 times 3.14. In your calculator, when you do 23 cubed, that is the large number of 12,167. Okay, and we're going to, of course, divide that when we do it by 3. Then, when we take our calculators and we multiply all those guys together, you're going to get 152,817.5, and we're going to divide that guy by 3. Okay, for our final answer, we divide that guy by 3 and you'll get 50,939, and I got 0.2. The book gets a tiny bit different number, but pretty much the same. It's only because of them pushing the button on the calculator instead of actually doing the problem. Okay, now let's look at number 5. Takes a little bit more thought process to do number 5. We're going to start it just the same way that we did the other ones, because it tells you our radius is 4.8. That's all we need to do the problem. Then we can say 4 times 3.14 times 4.8, but we have to cube the 4.8, and we're going to divide by 3. Okay? Well, that's the same thing as 4 times 3.14. Haven't changed anything there. 4.8 cubed is 110.592. Just use my calculator to find out what 4.8 times 4.8 times 4.8 is, and you get that. We're going to end up dividing by 3. When you punch all those numbers into your calculator all the way across, you should get something like 1,389. I have 0.04, and we're going to divide that guy by 3. When you divide that guy by 3, you get 463-ish. I'm going to just leave it at 463. There is some decimals there. But since this is the first one we're doing, might as well keep it short and sweet. If we have 463 for an entire sphere, remember this formula is for an entire sphere, and we're only given half the sphere, what might we do after that? Give you a second to think. Check your brains. What would I do to a sphere if I only have half of it when I've given its volume? Well, you would divide it, let me do it like this, by 2. You would divide it in half. So 463 divided in half is going to give you 231.5. Okay, so that's all you do for those. It's just one more step where you divide your final answer by 2. Divide it in half. Okay, watch that slowly. Pause it when you need to. After you're done, fast forward through me erasing. I'm jumping on to 3 problems from the homework page. On the homework page, we're doing 1, 3, and 9. I'm knocking out one of the story problems for you. So, how cool am I? Number 1 has a radius of 40. Very few of these, if any, give you a diameter And number 6 on this page gives you a diameter. Number 4 actually does also. You'll have to divide those in two before you use them, remember. Okay, but this is going to be straightforward. 4 times 3.14 times 40 cubed. And we're going to divide that guy by 3 when we're done. Which means we're doing 4 times 3.14 and 40 cubed. When you do that on your calculator, maybe you can even do that one in your head. Because if you cube 4, which most of you can do, you'll get 64, and then you're going to have 3 zeros, but don't necessarily have to worry about that right now. Okay, when I multiply all those guys together, I get 803,840. And we're going to divide that by 3. Let's make it a tiny bit better, 3. Okay, and when we divide that guy by 3, you're going to get 267, roughly 267,946.7. Okay, tiny bit lower than what the answer key says, but it's quite all right. Number 3 says, and this is a hemisphere one, so we got to be careful to do one more step. It gives us the radius is 7, which means if I take 4 times 3.14 times 7 cubed and divide it by 3, that's going to give us the entire sphere. At the end, we're going to divide by 2. So let's watch. This is still going to be 4 times 3.14. Okay, then 7 cubed is 343. Then we're going to divide that by 3 to get a volume of a sphere. When I multiply all those guys together on the top, I'm going to get 4,308.08, and I'm going to divide that guy by 3, remember. Okay? When I divide that guy by 3, I get 1,436.03. And again, your answers are going to be pretty close, not necessarily always the same. And then, when we do these, if we're just finding a hemisphere, remember the last step is a tiny bit different. We're going to take this, and now we have to divide by 2 to get half of this. And I think I'm still on the screen. Yep, if I put the answer here, when you divide that guy by 2, you get about 718. Okay? And that's all you do for that. I'm going to look at the story problem. Pause that for a second if you need to get that down. Then you can fast forward through my erasing like I always say. I'll remind you while I'm erasing, always feel free to email me or have your parents return a text and remind, or even directly text me, whatever it takes to answer questions that you have on these. But on number 9, the radius of a mini basketball is 4 inches. They tell us the radius right away, so not much that's going to be a ton different. Radius equals 4. So it says, what is the volume? Round to the nearest tenth. So this is really no different than the rest of them that we've been doing, so don't get freaked out by the fact that it's a story problem. We're still going to do 4 times 3.14 times what 4 cubed is. And we're going to, when we do that, we're going to divide it by 3 eventually. So that's the same as 4 times 3.14 times 4 cubed is 64. And we're going to divide that guy by 3. Okay, we're going to get into some decimals now, so I'm going to try to start using my squiggly equal sign. When you multiply those together, I got 803.84. And we're going to divide that guy by 3, remember? And when you do so, you get roughly 218. and 68. Okay, that was a pretty quick video. I made it quick because it's exactly like 8.1 and 8.2, but just using a different formula. And you plug your numbers in all over again, and you'll get the definition of the volume for a sphere. Okay, until next time when we change gears a little bit for 8.4, take care. Make sure you're using this video with the worksheets, with the answer keys before you look at my homework and try to answer them that way. Bye.